KREM 2 News begins now.
Thank you for joining us on KREM 2 Plus. I'm Tim Pham. This is your KREM 2 News Week in Review. Join us as we take a closer look at some of the biggest stories in the inland Northwest this past week.
Well, the first thing that's absolutely vital when it comes to heat like this is making sure you're properly hydrated. So what exactly does that look like? Well, according to the CDC, if you plan on spending an hour outside, they say you need to go ahead and plan on drinking at least 1 to 2 bottles of water as well. That means if you work outside or have lengthy outdoor plans, prepare to drink at least 8 bottles of water for an 8-hour day. Of course, that hydration is important because when we get a heat wave like this one, that increases the risk of heat exhaustion, illness, and heat stroke. All of those can sneak up on the healthiest of adults and children. So watch for signs like cramps, headaches, excessive sweat, getting dizzy, and losing consciousness. If you get any of those symptoms, especially fainting, you could have heat stroke and need to call 911 right away. It's going to be hot for several days, so again, make sure you're properly hydrating. Find cool places to escape some of that sunshine and heat if you're spending time outdoors. And then also make sure you're using sunscreen. But for now, reporting here in Spokane, Brandon T. Jones, KREM 2 News.
I'm outside the Coeur d'Alene Library where actually this afternoon the Library Alliance of North Idaho invited the public to gather at all the local North Idaho libraries to rally against this new law that went into effect here in Idaho. First, they gathered right outside the steps of the Coeur d'Alene Library. Some eventually moved to the entrance of the parking lot where they held up signs saying, "We love our library." Some people drove by honking in support. Now let's take a look at that state law that just went into effect today. It allows the public to file a complaint with the library requesting that a book they find inappropriate for the children's section to be moved. Now, first, the library board has 30 days to formally receive the request. Then, once it's formally received, that clock starts another 30 days for the library board to review the book and act on the request. Now, if the book isn't removed, people can sue the library and staff for $250 and other damages. Now, those rallying against this new law today believe this takes away parental rights and adds unnecessary work for libraries.
Our hope is that first, that our librarians and our library workers know that we support them and appreciate the work that they do, and we trust them. We trust them to make the decisions about what material should be in our books.
Books are the one area where items are reviewed, published, and go through a lot of process, and have restrictions on that is absurd.
Now, the law impacts both public libraries as well as those at public and private schools. The Coeur d'Alene Public Library says it made minor changes in preparation for the new law. It says it already had a material review policy, form, and procedure in place, but they modified each of them to match the process now outlined in the new statute. Now, today, the Library Alliance of North Idaho invited those who gathered here outside the library to sign some thank you cards, which they then delivered to the librarians. This wasn't the only demonstration today. There was also gatherings at the Post Falls, Hayden, as well as Spirit Lake libraries as well. Reporting in Coeur d'Alene, Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
Standing at the intersection of Brown and Main Street, where a notable member of the community died just last month. And just today at this very intersection, Spokane's mayor announced 2 initiatives that she's planning on, that she says that she hopes will help with safety around the area, particularly for people who don't normally use a car.
Lauren Pangborn is the vice chair of the Spokane Bicycle Advisory Board. She loves riding all over Spokane.
It was pretty good. I have a good route figured out now to get downtown. That's it's mostly safe.
But she says routes for fellow cyclists could be better.
Crossing Maple and Ash is always hard no matter where you try to cross.
She understands some may be hesitant to ride, as safety and lives can at times be a risk.
Even saw that right here with the unfortunate passing of Janet Mann. She had the right-of-way when she was hit by that truck driver, and she passed.
Janet Mann's death in this alleged hit and run was a tipping point for Spokane Mayor Lisa Brown to make the streets safer.
Janet was an advocate for children. She was an advocate for downtown safety. And today, we are advocating for improved traffic safety.
Today, Mayor Brown announced 2 initiatives building off the city's Safe Streets Now resolution. The first is an executive order with multiple components. It includes a traffic safety camera program. The mayor says she already instructed Spokane police to add more cameras to busy intersections and high-speed areas. Then they will recommend policies to eliminate traffic fatalities and injuries.
The Office of Neighborhood Services will work with the Street Department and Fleet Services to double the mobile speed feedback program over the next 2 years.
Under the second initiative, the mayor launched the city's new Transportation Commission. She says the commission will analyze data from different areas. Then they will recommend policies to eliminate traffic fatalities and injuries.
Cargo way.
It's a plan Pangborn can get behind.
If you have better infrastructure built up, people will use it. That's the beautiful thing.
By making the streets safer, she hopes others will be encouraged to see Spokane from 2 wheels.
Mayor Brown says the commission is looking for members, and for anyone interested, they're encouraged to keep an eye out for the application form, as it'll be available at a later date. In Spokane, Connor McAvoy, KREM 2 News.
In the first half of the 20th century, this parking lot along Spokane Falls Boulevard used to be the heart of Spokane's Asian communities. In the years leading up to Expo 74, many of the remaining businesses were taken down to make way for the World's Fair.
I always refer to Expo as one of the 2 big moments in Spokane's kind of landscape history. The first being the fire in 1889, which burns down the entire downtown core, and the second being the fair.
2 pivotal moments in the city's history. One caused utter destruction. The Great Fire in 1889 burned more than 30 blocks. The other wasn't by disaster. It was by choice to change the landscape for the World's Fair.
That is a huge cost. That living reminder, a physical reminder of a history of a community that is still thriving in Spokane. These communities are still around and they want that story told.
Especially the story of Trent Alley.
That area had started to flourish in the 1920s with Japanese and Chinese businesses.
This block here is the Davenport Grand. This is Auntie's Bookstore and parking lot, right?
Stephen Bingo spent months researching and gathering artifacts to tell the often untold history of Asian Americans in Spokane and how Expo 74 changed the community. We pulled the 1950 fire insurance map from the MAC archives. It shows dozens of Asian-owned businesses in and around Trent Alley. Here's that same map in the years before Expo, nearly all of them gone.
A lot of the artifacts that would help us understand or even see that there was an Asian presence downtown, those were destroyed.
There's no remnants of those. They were all torn down and turned into parking lots.
It's why Margaret Albaugh with Asians for Collective Liberation in Spokane is working to help preserve and tell the history of Asian Americans. By the early 70s, many businesses closed or became run down. Trent Alley became known as Skid Row, a place some called the slums, with crime and homelessness taking over.
It was not in urban developers' minds a space to preserve and protect.
Expo 74 was seen as a way to reform the area. While many Asian businesses closed prior to the 70s, for generations of Asians, seeing family businesses turned into parking lots was hard to see.
So there was, I think, a bit of a sense of loss, kind of like seeing your childhood community knocked down for, even if it's something as beautiful as a park, you still feel that sense of loss that those buildings are no longer there.
There's a sense of loss for some and progress for others. King Cole, known as the father of the fair, called the now demolished riverfront railroad tracks the Chinese Wall. He said this as a metaphorical wall to social progress.
I think for me, understanding the presence of Asian communities specifically and how they played a huge role in downtown Spokane, the economics of Spokane, the development of the downtown area.
I'm very plugged in with the Asian American community here in the Inland Northwest. Most tell me they appreciate what the fair did for this part of town. They just want to make sure that the stories of those in the footprint of the fair are not forgotten. Reporting in Spokane, I'm Tim Pham, KREM 2 News.
Kindness comes in all forms. John Ferris and his daughter Cece traveled from their California home to clean the unattended gravesite of a World War II veteran in Spokane. And it all began with a letter from 80 years ago.
I'd been kind of going through some of Dad's correspondence in the last year or so and had come across this letter that was so touching and moving. It made me so curious about who was this.
The letter was from a Reverend Charles McAllister at St. John's Cathedral. In it, he talked about the death of his son. Chuck McAllister was from Washington. A good student and great athlete, he went on to Princeton. He could have stayed stateside, but chose to go to the war. He was a celebrated leader, killed trying to save his men. One of those grieved by the loss was John's dad, Joel Ferris of Spokane. He was in the war and was corresponding with the Reverend following Chuck's death. He sent a note to a grieving father, who then turned his pain into service in his own way.
He really was such a grace-filled human in the way in which he responded to Chuck's passing and short life.
Inspired by the voices of the past, John decided to find where Chuck McAllister was buried and decided the gravesite wasn't good enough.
I reached out initially to some local groups and they didn't have the time or the resources to kind of come to tend to Chuck's tombstone, and they were very nice, and I thought, well, shoot, we'll go up and visit family sometime and we'll do it.
We leave you our deaths. Give them their meaning.
So he cleaned it as a show of support and reverence for the men and women who have sacrificed. And he did it for his own dad.
In a way, he's symbolic of my father's experience in a way that, Dad made it and Chuck didn't. And so it was such a impulse that I felt the need to take care of it.
John is adamant that there is no political agenda behind his trip. Rather, the opposite.
Be good citizens and help each other and vote and do right by them.
John and Cece kneel at not only a tombstone, but a touchstone of American patriotism. Men and women serve, and some come home, others don't. But for John, he believes none should be forgotten, and service should always shine. Reporting in Spokane, Laura Papetti, KREM 2 News.
When we first started, it was just a short little parade and very few people. Today, it's like you're in New York City. 4th of July. This is a pretty big parade, and it's really nice this year.
I am originally from Southwest Oklahoma. This is my second year watching this parade. So yeah, I've been enjoying it.
Well, I always love when the colors come through, all of the veterans, because that's what this is about.
No, they've had some really good floats so far. The tank, gotta be the tank. The guy had the frickin', the AR-15 up top, plus, holding the shell. That was pretty cool.
It was definitely crazy. I wasn't even expecting that, so yeah.
Getting together with family and just enjoying a really good time. Nobody's working. It's a good day. It's a great time.
Coeur d'Alene parade's where to be.
Dispensaries usually only deal with bud. But today, Apex Cannabis is donating blood.
Well, there's always been this misconception that consumers cannot donate blood, and Vitalent reached out to us and wanted to give us the news that we can actually give blood.
The partnership may seem strange, but it is actually a means of tackling a much larger issue.
There's about
42,000 transfusions a day, a couple million a year, so blood is always needed.
Partnerships like this one not only combat an existing blood shortage, but also dispel myths about the blood donation process and cannabis use. Carrie Lucky, a bud tender at Apex, will be donating blood for the very first time.
My last attempt to donate blood was, as you said, in an illegal state. So I was eager to donate, and we were waiting, and I remembered that I'd smoked cannabis 2 weeks before, and quickly got out of there because I didn't know what their procedure was.
Stories like Lucky's are common, but Stephanie Caceres from Vitalent says the only thing prohibiting cannabis users from donating is time.
It's not really recommended same-day usage, just because a lot of potential things could happen. We're not really sure, and your body's probably not really sure how it's going to react. If we take blood from you, you could get pushed into a reaction where we have to monitor you and take your blood pressure and all that stuff. People can faint and pass out.
This may be the first blood drive of its kind in Washington state, but it certainly won't be the last.
We've had plenty of signups. We've filled all of our slots. We have a few walk-ins already. We'll do it again.
Aidan Brown, KREM 2 News.
I'm Brent Uzo, and I had managed the photo shop at Expo 74. A ticket from the gate. Here's another one with a stamp, the Peter Max stamp. Jim Beam had a commemorative liquor bottle. These are some photos I took at the fair. This is the script from the opening day ceremonies. This is actually minute by minute what happened, what they were going to have happen. I think this is the original. And this was his working script that, the band comes in 10 minutes later, let's switch this over here and release the pigeons on this cue, and the president speaks here and things like that. And I found those in an antique shop in Seattle. There was something going on every day in the fair. The World's Fair transformed Spokane, transformed my life. I have a 50-year career after I left there in the business of photo entertainment, doing old-time photos, ride photos, Santa photos. And these aren't just collectibles to me, they're memory. Seeing those invisible dogs, and then when they introduced them, no one had ever seen them before, and I thought that was the dumbest thing I ever saw, so I knew it would sell well. Nobody did it as well as Spokane. They took what was a problem area in the city and they made it into a shining star, and it still is.
Thank you for joining us on KREM 2 Plus for a look at some of the biggest news stories of the past week. For the most current news throughout the weekend, you can watch our latest newscast here on KREM 2 Plus. Just look for it at the bottom of the navigation menu. I'm Tim Pham. Thanks for watching.